Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So this is episode 2 of the NHL 23 Wishlist series, where after the first episode, I gave you guys the most important things I think that I would like to see in the next video game. But episode 2 and onward is all going to be about your comments and answering them if they have a real shot or a possibility, and just kind of my feedback on all of them because I like hearing from you guys. So make sure on this next video, on this video right here, you leave your comment and feedback on any of the prior mentioned ones or your own. That way we can discuss it as we go throughout the summer. So let's get right into it. We'll start at the bottom. The Venom Pit says, all I want is crossplay. I mentioned this at the beginning. Crossplay is 100% needed for NHL. I think cross-market might slightly be more important for Hockey Ultimate Team specifically, but I think those are two both tied together and definitely needed. We saw NHL 22 suffer an absolutely crippling blow because our community is just not big enough to support the game being separated 4 separate ways. So crossplay 100% is the number one. All right, up next is Dylan says, we need to rework X Factors to make it so anytime you pull a higher overall card of that player, you can use it to rank up your X Factor and get those abilities. For example, a McKinnon X Factor is 74 overall. You pull a 90 Team of the Week Mac Daddy, you should be able to trade that Team of the Week to the X Factor, and absorbs the zone abilities and the stats. This would make it so that every card that an X Factor gets holds their value. I agree that there definitely needs to be a way to turn the new card into the X Factor tier. I don't know if I agree with skipping all of the other stages for X Factors, because you have to take into account that they have multiple synergy slots. They have usually far more abilities than any Primetime or Team of the Week card. However, let's say you have an 87 Nathan McKinnon and an 88 comes out. If you pull that 88, whether it be tradable or non-tradable, you should be able to take that 88 and just throw it right in and take that and unlock the 88 overall tier. I think that was a big misstep this year, and I remember stating it in like the beta when I was testing it, that I think that really needs to be the case. I'm not sure if EA has the tech for it, to be honest with you. I think that a lot of these questions that I'm gonna speak to, there was a FIFA article that came out from an EA Game Changer for FIFA, and he had mentioned, speaking with many of the developers and older devs that no longer work at the company, that the code of the game, the foundation of the code of the game, is absolutely brutal. And for them to tear it down and start new would not be possible in a yearly cycle. And I think that NHL suffers a lot of this. I think that their foundational code that they can make all the changes to the game just is in a god-awful spot, and I think that it impacts things like this. However, I think that if you pull that card, if you got that Team of the Week card untradeable and you threw it into the McKinnon, getting it to unlock that next tier, that'd be huge. That would be huge for all of the cards. Fed says, guaranteed rewards and power and parallel players like MLB. I mentioned this as my number one thing. If you don't know what parallel is in MLB, essentially you unlock overall increases to every single card based on how much XP that you put into it. So if you, let's say you play 100 games with base Sidney Crosby, he's an 87 overall. If you got him to level 5, he would bump up to a 92 overall, or something of that sense. Maybe not as high in NHL as it is in MLB, but definitely needs to happen in not just NHL, in all Ultimate Team modes, in my opinion. I think it's so great for free-to-play players, and just being rewarded for each card and performing well with it just adds a lot more engagement for every card. All right, my man Maze Jolt, he went on an absolute insane essay, and I want to talk, well, I'll pick one, okay? I'm going to pick one of these because there's just so much, and I love Maze because, well, he is one of the most diehard members of my community. So again, Maze, shout out to you. But I just don't want to spend. I could spend the whole video going over what you said here. So I'm going to start with number 4. The feature I would like to see here is bigger and better team building sets. For example, if you complete every NHL team in the collection, you get Gretzky or Lemieux a choice, and this could be completed day 1. And not for it being too much pay to win in the beginning. The player is starting maybe at 92 overall or something, +2 overall from the highest base card player, and it automatically goes up +2 every month. And so for the AHL, it's maybe Willie Marshall, highest point scorer, and so for the league, and the players you trade in becomes untradeable, and then they they never disappear from your collection. This would stop trading players back and forth between multiple consoles. You mentioned this. Yeah, I would love to see an upgraded team builder. I mentioned this in mine. There needs to be collections for sure. For every team, I think would be awesome. I mentioned my example for the Ice Dogs. If you completed all of the Ice Dogs, all the silver and bronze cards from the Niagara Ice Dogs, you got an 86 Alex Pietrangelo, for example. But what he mentioned about Gretzky and Lemieux, 100% agree with. We're not getting 99 overall cards at launch of the game. So if you want to get Mario or Gretzky, if you collected everyone and they were 94 overalls, let's say, there would be a very, very, very small portion of the player base that would actually have them, because I know from just spending a lot of money in game every year to get the best cards to show you guys, it would take an exceptional amount of money, and I don't think people realize that it would be a much smaller amount that would actually be able to acquire them. You wouldn't really see them that much, but it allows you something to grind for, and it's a really good flex card in my opinion. So I definitely think that should be the case. And again, maybe they're capped at 92 or 93 and they go up overalls. I think that's definitely the play there for sure. All right, LOLOL says, I basically only play HUT, so here are the things I think could make it better from the start. Make HUT icons useful, add more game modes, online or offline, like Draft Champs. Make there a better way to use the players, like an upgrade system. Making upgradable cards more accessible. Make EVO the first event. Guarantee rewards, add a 90-plus overall team builder, etc. for every team to make team building more fun. Edit totally not game-focused, but being able to buy the game with a different cover athlete would be sick. One could be the Zegras edition versus the Kaprizov edition and come with a different pre-order bonus. That would actually be pretty sweet, but I think that it'd probably be a legality thing. Actually, no, it probably wouldn't be, because there was multiple cover athletes. I think at NHL 19 where Subban was on, but they also had a Finnish version of Patrick Laine, I think. So I think that'd be kind of cool. In terms of what you mentioned, the Evo is the one I want to speak about, because I actually mentioned in my prior video all the other things you mentioned. Evo does need to be the first event. If you guys don't know what the Evo event is, basically it's cards that are tied. Their overall goes up by +1 for every goal they score in real life, which is my favorite event every year, because you can make absolute bank and EA has no control. They have no control over how well these cards do. And Duchesne and Kyber were among the best cards in the game for the entire year. Evo being the very first event would allow a lot more fun right at the beginning of the year. You're watching every game. You've got players. You got Morgan Riley. You're watching Leaf games, hoping he scores. I think that's 100% totally agree that should be the very first event of the year. Games and Roses, my man. I love having you in the streams all the time, so it is good to see some members of my community in here. Games and Roses, quality of life request. Can we get a HUT practice mode? Also, can we get cards in our collection to be lockable, or even just a big giant set to store my cards so that I don't actually re-roll the ones I'm saving, holding on to? Love dude who accidentally re-rolled his 96 fantasy Sean Couture last year. I remember that dude, RIP. HUT practice mode, 1000%. We have practice mode in every other mode. Why can't we go into practice mode to test out the cards that we get? 100% agree with that. Testing it in-game is so much more difficult, because you can't do the one-on-one deeks and do them over and over and over again. You're basically testing as you go, and that could lead to a really bad gaming experience, because you say you're going up against a good player, you don't want to test and see how cards feel in that. I 100% agree. In terms of locking cards, I'd love that. I know someone in the comments in replying to you mentioned you could just store them into other trade-in sets. I get that, but you should be able to lock your cards into your collection. I agree. T-Han says, crossplay, please. I respect, dude. Jody Graves says, I would like to see an NHL 23 ability to put my face on my player. Man, I remember back in NHL 07 or something, wasn't there the ability to take your picture with a webcam and put it on EA's website? But I remember that being a thing. I just don't remember how long ago it was. That would be really cool. I think NBA has that. Passing a little more accurate, so they actually turned off the assist pass model that was in the game. So they made it where basically passing it no longer automatically tracks to the player you're passing to. That has been kind of a hit or miss thing, because it did increase a skill gap for people that are able to pass really effectively. The issue is that it's very inconsistent. If you're passing backwards, say you're going from the top right corner down to the point, it's there's zero assist at all, and that's when you send the puck way out of the zone. Also, they removed the thing in replays where you could actually see where you're aiming, and I think that was a frostbite issue, but you can't even tell if you were actually aiming correctly or not, so you don't know if you're actually getting worse or better at passing, which is all brutal. So customizable goalie mask and gear, that'd be sick. I would love that. I don't know why it's not in the game. Updated equipment, I think that you mean like, like hockey or like hockey sticks, stuff like that. That'd be cool. Throwback helmets and skates. That'd be awesome if we got like old school helmets in the game. More build customization. I talk about that with Kesso in my build video that's going to be released soon. Attributes that work. There's so many attributes that do nothing. College teams. That's a whole other issue with the NCAA. Like, that's why that's not in the game at all. More logos for create a team, more player customization. It's crazy that you can't do what you can do in World of Shell in HUT. I don't know why. It's like they're separate games, and it sucks, but I agree. Hansley says, seriously, Sleeves, with all the times they invested in Frostbite, I was expecting more on the cinematics animations, such as more realism in skater movements, stick physics improvements, goalie warm-up routines. This shouldn't be hard because goalies keep mostly the same routines for their entire career. It's not true that all goalies should move and stand the same way. 1000%. I was pretty underwhelmed at the graphical improvement because if you go back, and I have videos on my channel going over almost every NHL game where I review them all, you can see when they jump generations, you can clearly tell the game that is on PS2 and then PS3. You can tell the game that's on PS1 and then PS2. And there wasn't that big of a graphical jump, and I'm not sure why. In terms of stick physics improvements, this was the first year of stick and physics where the game actually made a player model separate from their stick. So in all prior games, your stick and the player was all one model, which is why the stick went through the boards, through pads, all of that. This year was the first year where if a stick hit something, it like hit it and it bounced off. The problem is that you got like these wacky inflatable tube men moments where you're, like your player's stick is behind his back and like it was a mess. I still think that is going to be one of the biggest improvements to the game in the history of the game, but it is not this year because it is very early in development and they really need to fix a lot of it because what it led to was an insanely clunky gameplay. So I agree there. The goalie warm-up routines, there should be more animations. 100%. We've had the same Stanley Cup animation for like 15 years. 100% agree with that. Jay Erickson said, I would like NHL 23 to handle interference penalties correctly. Bro, preach, man. Like I said, a lot of clunkiness. And how many times did you get an interference call because your AI just bangs into another player and you take a penalty for it? Awful, awful, awful. Wyatt says, my list, crossplay. Yeah, would love to see crossplay. Copy Ultimate Team from MLB. You can't do that. You can't expect that. Two different games. There's a lot of things I would like to see from MLB, but there's also a lot of things from MLB that would not work in NHL. Not just because of the tech, but like the way the game is played, it wouldn't work. In World of Shell, no more bags, but instead have a currency system. Yes, man. What's crazy is that if they changed World of Shell to you could get bags or maybe a currency that you bought an individual thing, but what if you just could put $20 in and it was like every other season pass kind of game mode and buy what you want your player to look like? Like, I know that's like, it's not pay to win, but like if you want to, instead of investing 1,000 hours and never getting the jersey tuck, it'd be cool if you just like buy it if you wanted to. Be a pro. Actually, people actually talk to you, no more reading. Oh, man, I would love that, but that would require a ton of investment in terms of, like, the time. But, I mean, they have... The reason why they went to Sobolski and Ferraro was because they live in Vancouver. So getting them into the studio, they could do it multiple times a year, as opposed to Olechuk and Doc, they can only get them out like once a year, which is why we very rarely had like improvements to commentary. I agree. That'd be a narrated Be a Pro would be awesome. Someone else buy the rights to NHL. EA is not good at this anymore. Big misconception, EA does not have the rights to the NHL. Any other video game company can make an NHL video game. The reason why they don't is because it is one of, if not, or it's the smallest of the four major sports, and they just don't see a big enough improvement or a big enough bottom line. If they were to do that, I would love it, but no. Crossplay with PC. I would love that. There's no way you can get a PC version of the game unless there is crossplay for obvious reasons, but the PC section of the community that would play on PC would be insanely small. You already see it in FIFA and Madden. There's a very small player base compared to console, and you obviously would never be able to do it in NHL because there'd be like 5 people that would play it. Kenny James says, love X Factors, but hate the ridiculous cost. The current cost to power them up makes them pretty much useless. 100% agree. Make them cheaper to power up. Maybe make them power up according to the in-game accomplishments. Would love that. I mentioned that. It'd be kind of like the parallel system. And when you release them later in the year, release them at the overall, the most recent card, not the base card. Like if you packed them, that'd be sick. This will make them useful and valuable the entire year. If they do X Factor the same way as 22, I won't use any of them. Same. They are all just basically there to turn into Team of the Season or Team of the Year cards. This one's a long one from Kenny, so I'm just going to pick this squad battles part. For squad battles, make the tier sets a certain point levels and let everyone who gets max points. I agree. I can't stand that it is RNG. It is random based on the players, or the teams that you get, the overalls you get, that you can't get max and number 1 rank. 100% make it a certain level. If you max out every game in squad battles and play them all, how you don't get the top rewards is absolutely ridiculous. And you can finish with a perfect score and not even get top 10 based on the only scheduled lottery. 100% agree, man. This one's from Pride of Trust. He says, number 1 cross-console. If cross-console is not in NHL 23, we are effed. I can speak for everyone when I say it's super annoying that when you want a specific card, e.g. Mario Lemieux, and you have 1.5 million coins to buy him, and there isn't any up for sale. 1,000% agree. This is why I think cross-market is more important than cross-console, but we need both. Not to mention, if you're a top 100 player, it's almost impossible to find a game after GBC is over. This is, again, another reason why I think that cross-market is more important than cross-console, because if you're not in that, like, the 3... Like, I'm about 2,500 skill rating, so I'm in high Division 1. I can still find a game within a couple of minutes, but if you're in, like, 3,000 above, you're never finding a game, and I feel for you guys, but, like I said, if I had to choose between cross-market and cross-console, I'd probably choose cross-market, because it would make HUT as a whole a little bit better, but I feel you, man. It's awful. Passing and stick in physics. I'm so sick of throwing a pass too many to one of my defensemen, and the puck ends up all the way back in the zone. I literally just talked about this. Also, when 2 players are going into a corner battling the puck, one or both players' stick gets tangled up in a funky animation, and no one can pick up the puck, causing a missed chance and giving away puck position. I can't agree with you more on that, dude. It's a mess. This one is from Yanni. Very good things, especially guaranteed rewards and that card upgrade XP thingy. 100% agreed, man. Spider Pig says, stick physics need to be fixed. I agree. Like I said, I think it was the first year of it being in the game, and it definitely needs to improve year over year. Players getting their stick stuck and hand stuck makes it a very crappy gameplay. X Factor should be able to upgrade with the highest overall card, e.g. if I pull a 91 Matthews, I should be able to use that card to upgrade him. 100% agree. New to guitar. Remove the ability to pay to play. We already shelled out big bucks in most cases for years. Buying each new edition of NHL only to be disappointed. I would love it if HUT was not driven by greed and trying to encourage users to purchase packs. Unfortunately, man, it's business. Like, every Ultimate Team game mode is based on this. I think this year in Hockey Ultimate Team, unless you start after January, 15th, if you started before then, you could have a competitive team free to play, and I'm going to show you guys that next year. I'm going to have a ton of free to play stuff, an entire free to play journey throughout the year. You get so many packs that you can put together a team, but without guaranteed cards, you're basically hoping for big pulls, but there is enough packs where you can field a competitive team. I've always said this. I think NHL is pay to play, not pay to win. Meaning that at a certain point, you have to put in some money to catch up to the majority of the player base. But once you get to a 90 overall, it's usually the better player wins. And I know everyone is like, that's completely not true. Guys, the last 3 years, the best players in North America were Young, Gren, and Regs, and they have been the finalists the last 3 years in a row. Think of how much RNG and randomness happens to not only qualify for the Game World Championship, but to be the final 2 every single year. If you're the best, you're going to win the majority of your games, but it is definitely pay to play. At a point, you have to pay to catch up. Brent Toledo says, when blocking the cross crease pass, the puck still goes through. They did improvement, but it's still not perfected. I agree. I don't know what it is, but later on in the year, I've noticed that passes go through way more, the forces, and I'm wondering if it's because passing's up to 99, but defensive awareness is at 99, so I don't really understand it. Hut challenges. If you complete the list of the task and you get a good selection from a choice pack, reasonable challenges, not something cracked. That'd be fun. An improvement to hut challenges, 100%. Change the commentary to something new. I feel like it's the same every year. Commentary is tough, like I mentioned before. Cebulski and Farrar are better in the sense that there is newer things. But yeah, like that one's a little bit more difficult because they do add in quite a bit, I feel, in the last few years. But make the crowd look more realistic and loud. I would love it if there was new animations or new things like that to make the atmosphere better. 100%. It'd be amazing if they added a My Career mode where you create a character and able to skate or walk around challenging people from other different ice rinks, go in stores and buy new gear. A lot like NBA 2K. There's a My Career now, but it's boring. Dude, that would... Like, you have to think that the NBA 2K, they did so much of their resources on that mode. Like, it's mind-blowing how good it is. But you got to think that there's no way. There's so much more improvements I'd rather see than that. But I would love it for sure. All right, guys, so that is going to do it. About 20 minutes an episode for the NHL 23 wish list. If you want to have your comment or question answered on the next video, comment down below and make sure you are subscribed as I'm going to answer all of my subscriber questions. So, again, I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you next video. Have a good one.